The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Pat Scott. Hi, Pat.
Howdy.
And Father Andrew Kinstetter. Hi, Father Andrew.
Hello, hello.
To start off tonight, as we're recording this, I wanted to highlight some feedback we got from a listener. We did some listener feedback last week. We get some more this week from listener Alan, who sent in an email in response to our discussion recently of SpaceX and how cool it was to see the Crew Dragon go up to the space station. Did you both get a chance to watch that, by the way? I haven't talked to you since then.
I did not watch it, but I heard about it.
Okay.
I also heard that there was a nifty little dragon that apparently is now sold out in all sorts of stores because it was their zero-G tester, but it's a little like $5 dinosaur.
Stuffed animal. Yeah. That floating around the cabin.
Yeah. So I need to go watch it, but I just haven't had the chance.
I just watched clips. I didn't see the whole thing.
It was great. We had I was sitting at lunch. I told the story last time, but I was sitting having lunch Saturday afternoon, or late lunch really. It was Saturday afternoon, and I realized, it's time. And I brought up the feed on my iPad, and all the kids gathered around. And I'm like, "This is history, kids! This is so cool." So Alan writes in and he says, like y'all, I'm impressed by the technology SpaceX has developed, and I'm very pleased the Crew Dragon launch and docking was successful. The ability to transport humans to the space station is an essential capability for the United States. I am, however, concerned about an inordinate focus on public relations and coolness in space exploration. It certainly generates public support and interest, which is good. However, there are downsides to consider. Designing hardware to cosmetically look like a science fiction movie can, and is probably intended to, elicit positive emotions and visions of advanced capabilities which exceed what is currently achievable. While it is true humanity has reliable rocketry capability, that success does not extend to all aspects of human life beyond Earth. When technology development becomes too political, it inevitably leads to pressure to take additional risk, for example, the Challenger disaster, or overstate capabilities. Space is very dangerous, and contrary to popular myth, it is not empty. The radiation and subatomic particle environment within our solar system is extremely hazardous to humans, and we have minimal ability to shield against it. On Earth, our atmosphere and magnetosphere protect us. My fear is space travel will be glamorized to the point where risks are only partially assessed and addressed before lives are at stake. I don't believe the engineers would knowingly endorse disproportionate risk, but engineers don't always have decision-making authority. I certainly hope humanity continues to pursue space exploration, but if it isn't done prudently, the results may be catastrophic and very public. So, thank you, Alan, for sending that in. So what do y'all think? Is Alan's concern justified?
My own thought is that probably the cosmetic things that they do to make it look like, Star Trek uniforms or Star Trek looking things is not going to jeopardize anything. And I think that a measured approach in all things, balanced, is going to provide the risk assessment and the capability to do it safely without having problems. I think worse of a case is if it gets politicized too much. I think that's a higher risk.
Right. If a politician pushes to launch under unsafe conditions because it would look bad for him, that would be that would be a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have something like the Challenger disaster that just keeps the risk in front of our faces. Mm-hmm. This isn't just I'm gonna develop a cool new car that looks really crazy and go test it out. This is, something like that. Can be totally done in a safe environment. But something like traveling in outer space the risk is just so much more proportionately higher that I think if it looks cool, it's helpful. I mean, it gets the money to flow, sure. But I think the risk is always inherently too high for them to let the cosmetics interfere with
right.
safety.
I would say that the idea of making it all look cool goes back to the very beginning of spaceflight. I mean, the whole point of the Mercury astronauts, they had silver suits. That was cosmetic. It was done because it made them look more like spacemen. It didn't make it any less safe. And the whole idea of pushing the coolness and political factors, pushing them to override safety. Both the disaster, the Apollo, I forget which number it was, one disaster, the one that exploded with Chaffee and White, who died on the launch pad. That disaster and then the Challenger disaster both emphasized none of those were done because of there was we wanted to look cool. There were other bureaucratic problems, but following both of those, there were changes instituted in which it said that any launch can be scrubbed, for instance, by any one of the engineers in charge of a subsystem. That's where we have that whole go, no-go check right before every launch. And we heard that if we were watching the Crew Dragon launch, they would go, they would say to each subsystem, are you go or no-go? Go or no-go, go. And anyone says no-go, it's scrubbed. They stop. So I think the cosmetics, making it look cool, I don't think that anyone is doing that to the detriment of safety or engineering capability or anything like that. I think it's because you can. I mean,
I think that that's just part of human nature too. Like, we want to do awesome things, but we want to look cool doing them.
Right. If they were doing things that were not safe, like, I don't know, it's not safe
of some sort.
Yeah. If they were doing so, they throwing X-wing wings on it that are all purely cosmetic, and could cause it to flip out of control. Right. I mean, that would be bad. But or if they were doing stunts in space in order to film it so that you could have a cool thing and just unsafe things in space. But I mean, watching everything that they did, everything was they went slow. They were methodical. They were very careful. You could tell everything was being done to the T. I don't know. I don't feel like the coolness factor is making it less safe. I just put it that way. But
it's good to consider safety, and I appreciate the caller's interest in that. And I think we all want to make sure that it's as safe as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's definitely something to consider with the technology. Is you don't want to let the coolness of something that in the form of it to override the function. And that goes for even the stuff that we use every day. I can't tell you how many times I've had some consumer tech product that looked great and was a terrible device and didn't work right. So that's something we have to keep in mind.
And it goes back to, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. Just because it could be done to look
right.
Extra spiffy.
Right. If those spacesuits were uncomfortable, if they weren't really functional, if the astronauts had a hard time moving around in them, but they looked cool, if they put lights inside the helmet that let you see their face, but caused glare for them, that they made them hard to see out of it, which is what lights inside a helmet do, frankly. That's why you only see them in movies. But if they were doing that, that I would have a problem with that. So I would agree with that. That there has to be a line drawn.
This is definitely not science fiction.
No, this is science.
Right. You hear about all the actors who suit up in all sorts of things and how uncomfortable and non-functional they are. But no, this is reality, not science fiction.
And even closer to Earth. I mean, whether it's Top Gun or the Top Gun sequel, where it's fighter pilots and stuff, and they do stuff in those planes, and there are real pilots flying real planes, but even then, sometimes you're seeing stunts that aren't actually, they're CGI or models and not actual stuff. So there's a measure of that as well. All right, so let's move on to our second topic that we wanted to talk about tonight, and this is an article that I ran across, and this is an interesting article on Medium where I just want to make sure I get the right name for the person who wrote it. I don't want to misquote them. Maddie Stone writes the article's titled "How Apple Decides Which Products Are Vintage and Which Are Obsolete." But really, this is about technology going obsolete. But for Apple specifically, they have very specific terms for vintage and obsolete technology. So a vintage Mac, say, or other device is, I'm trying to find the things. Vintage Apple devices are those that the company discontinued selling more than 5 and less than 7 years ago. When it gets over 7 years, it's obsolete. Meaning, so if it's vintage, you can get certain kinds of repairs done. But if it's obsolete, they're not going to offer to repair it at all. You can go to a third party and that sort of thing. And it kind of brings up the question of is how long should we expect our technology to last? Is 5 years or 7 years an unreasonable amount of time to expect say a computer that costs $1,500 to be not obsolete? What do you guys think? Do you have any that are that old?
So actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. I have a Windows 95 that is 3 times the lifespan of an obsolete, according to Apple. We've had it since 1996, and it still runs. My parents gave it to me a number of years ago because it's got some of my favorite old games on it. So it doesn't do much. It has maybe a phone line that maybe could do dial-up internet, but it still runs, and it still runs well for its operating system. Windows 95. But I remember definitely when I was a kid, I remember taking that computer to the computer store, in town, and constantly getting it either upgraded or more memory put into it or repaired for, the CD drive quit working, and we had that thing for, I guess we probably had it for about 5 years or so, because then I do remember getting a Windows XP, but by that point it wasn't the hardware that was really going bad; it was all the software upgrades and
wouldn't
everything
run on
that we
it
needed.
After a while.
Right.
Yeah.
We needed the new hardware for the new operating systems. But in terms of hardware, that computer is it's still kicking pretty well. So I guess in terms of modern computers, I sure hope that my iMac that I just bought, within the last year lasts more than 5 years, more than 7 years,
Right.
and without any major slowdowns in it. Unfortunately, I think this is just pretty standard though in terms of modern technology, that 5 years is almost a lifetime.
Right.
Especially if you're thinking of a smartphone. Mine's 3 years old now, and it, it's still working fine, but there's still like this impulse that when they announce the new iPhone that you have to go out and upgrade. And even Apple had admitted to slowing down older phones with kind of, I know it was to save battery, but still there's this
expectation that they're doing it on purpose to get you to buy new stuff.
Right. So, I think hardware-wise, though, I think they're perfectly capable of lasting much longer than 5 years. The problem becomes, and this article points that out, is if they break, you can't hardly find repair parts. You can't, fix it.
Well, and I was thinking about that. I just, within the last 3 months, helped replace a power supply on a Windows 95 machine for a disabled person that has all of these games that they just really, it's a pleasure in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that I think that's reasonable, that as long as you can, you do, but you don't count on it. You don't put something that is valuable on there and then be without it if it breaks. I think this has to be considered an extra machine that is discardable if it finally breaks and can't be fixed. 5 to 7 years sounds reasonable to me. In terms of anything older than that, yes, you're going to have a lack of repair parts. You're going to have a lack of people who know that product to be able to do the repairs. And you're going to have hardware that's going to be more likely to fail the older it gets, and security problems because the operating system will not stay up to grade on, after 7 years. You're not going to have an operating system that's current and up to date. So I think it's fine if you want to say, go ahead and keep it for something that's non-essential. But I don't think you can say, well, I think Apple should keep supporting this, because that's a cost to consumers, because they've got to have people that are constantly being able to work on this stuff. And it's lessening and lessening and lessening as far as the amount of people it serves. So I think that would be, a 5 to 7 years is not unreasonable for me.
When we look at the article points out that these devices are constantly making them better. They're constantly, trying to improve them. New technology comes along and they put new tech in them. And they have to, if they're going to support a device, if they're going to say, we will repair this, they have to keep the parts for that device around, and they have to keep a stock of them. And it costs money to keep a stock of that stuff. And the more time goes on, the more different models you have to keep the parts for. And, it's not like the Model T coming off the line where everyone, part is from 1920 to 1935. They all use the same axle, or so. I'm just making that up. But it was like that in many ways. And in fact, the car, I think, is an apt comparison, because with cars, we have definitions. A car is a classic car if it's over 20 years old, generally considered. A car is an antique car if it's over 50 years old. Now, that's a much larger time span, obviously, and that could change over time as technology in cars changes. But, if I owned a car that's over 20 years old, it might be a great car, like a wonderful example, a cool car from my youth, But if I'm relying on that for transportation as my only transportation, that's probably a bad idea. Yeah. So I think it's reasonable to expect a computer to last 5 years. I think that's a reasonable expectation, and maybe even up to 7 years to expect a company to support that. I think Apple kind of goes beyond the norm. I think a lot of Windows PC companies offer a lot fewer years of support. And I've had Macs that have lasted much longer. I mean, I had a Bondi Blue iMac from 1998 that I passed along to several family members and got back, and it lasted for like 12 years, and I think I still get it in my shed because it's an original Bondi Blue iMac. How do I get rid of that? But on the other hand, I have a 2017 iMac in front of me, which is fantastic. And I'm already starting to go, the newer iMacs are a little bit faster. I could edit a show a little faster if this was just a little faster. And that's just the nature of it. If you buy your shoes, with the time you spend working on a thing, it could be justified in upgrading it. So if it's a work thing. But if it's just I need a machine to surf websites and occasionally write an email or a letter or whatever, kind of like my wife uses her computer, we replace that when she spills a glass of water on it every few years. So that's pretty much our schedule on that one. But she had like a 2011 MacBook, the MacBook Air for until like 2018, 17, 18, I think it was a long time. So, one of the things that comes up is, should we have right to repair laws that allow us to continue working on and repairing our old tech long after the companies that made them stop supporting them? So some of these repairs require us to, like, for example, the article points out that Apple, on some of the newer tech devices, it had, like, especially on iPhones, you have to use a special tool that only they have to reset the device without bricking it. If you say replace the screen or certain other parts, Apple says this is a security measure. This is the security is so bound up into just the very guts of the device that we can't allow people to do this sort of repair. Now, other people say, look, it's my device. I should be able to do what I want. What do you think?
I guess I feel like for hobbyists who want to do something, then if they want to tinker with it and that type of thing, but they can't expect any support at all. But yeah, I think sometimes the special tools and things like that do seem a little unfair. because I know my son has replaced screens and replaced speakers and things like that on both iPhones and Androids, and it would be nice as long as you could do that without it costing other people money to have that being supported, etc. Now, I'm not probably going to be one of the ones who does that type of repair, but
well, one of the things is it's a feature. It's a question of whether you're going to get this feature. Apple has this activation lock so that someone can't steal your phone and just reset it and start using it. It's a deterrent to crime, and it ties your fingerprint or Face ID that's embedded in the memory on the logic board. It ties it to the device, and so no one else can use it. And they could get rid of that, and we'd be less secure in our device. You know what I mean? So what do you think, Father Andrew?
Well, I don't want to lose the security. I mean, I definitely appreciate that. If my phone were ever get lost, I know that I could wipe it remotely, and I mean it would be locked down, and I love that about it. So I wouldn't want to get rid of that. The problem is that you point out it's the crooks out there. If you knew that everyone who had a 5 to 10 year old device was simply wanting to and they bought it at a pawn shop, and they just wanted to kind of tinker with it and play with it and reboot it up and no malicious intent, then it seems like absolutely they should be able to do that. But you have all the potential for misuse and the stealing of information, and I don't think I'm willing to let go of that security. But then on the flip side, then I'm basically saying that I don't want someone to be able to just tinker as they want. But plenty of people do that with their own devices. I know, like, if you jailbreak your own device, you void any warranty, and I mean you're on your own. But I know people do that all the time, but that's with their own device that they've already purchased. And
I'd like to see a halfway measure where right now one of the problems with this great security is it's when a phone does get stolen or broken or whatever, it's absolutely useless. They can't reuse it, they can't wipe it, etc. I would like a way that the consumers couldn't necessarily reset it, but it could be taken back to Apple with some way of just saying, okay, they can make it so it is renewable. It is not thrown in the garbage. But I don't know whether I suppose there still would be a case where you could have an employee that was not kosher, was not being correct, and would take these in and then send them back out again. Well, they can if you activation lock your phone accidentally, you can go in and have them undo it. All you have to do is just prove it's your phone. True. But what they're saying is there's a lot of resale shops and donation places are getting old phones that the activation lock hasn't been removed, and therefore it's a brick to them. Right. But I would like to be able to say, well, just take it to Apple. Let them take care of recycling it so that it is able to be reused, but not the person who gave it to them benefit from it. Well, that's the problem is these businesses who refurbish old iPhones, they want to be able to make the money off of it. Yeah, you already can do that. You can give it to Apple and they will recycle the phone. Right, but maybe it could be something like, well, I'm going to give you a bricked phone, Apple. Now you just give me a refurbished old one in replacement for it, so that that information can't be stolen, etc. Yeah. Well, I don't see the incentive for Apple to do that. Honestly. No, I don't. But I mean, they'd rather sell a new phone. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. One of the things that is the repair issue, and frankly, I've repaired. I use the iFixit.com website. I've used them dozens of times. They're a fantastic resource because not only do they sell parts and tools, but they also have guides. And one of the most intricate repairs I've ever done, the hardest ones I've ever done, was I had a MacBook about 10 years ago where I closed the top, the screen, and I'd left a pen inside the hinge, and it cracked my screen. Yeah, it was painful to look at. And I bought a replacement screen on eBay, and I followed the guide, and I replaced it.
and it was good for years. And I'm like, that's a pretty good thing. But would I be able to do that now? There's this balance between keeping us safe from the bad people and from ourselves, and letting us be the master of our own device. And that's
usability.
Yeah. Right. And that's an area that we struggle with in a lot of areas with our technology. I'm not a big, like, I don't want Apple to go this way with like their operating system where they lock it down so much that I can only install stuff that's, say, from the App Store, like we do with our phones and iPads. I don't want that to happen. I love being able to install, download some weird piece of software off the internet somewhere and install it myself and tell Gatekeeper to let me do it, because I'm the boss of my computer and I'm going to do that. But yet, I don't want my mom doing that. So,
right, but there is a provision they have to say, yes, well, the default is here's the safest. And if you're techie enough, then right, enough to go a deeper level.
And I want them to keep it there instead
right,
of moving the ball toward the iOS level, which is the other way they do it.
Yeah, I think that, if they completely locked it down, it makes the whole experience less enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's also funny, as you were talking, all I could think of is I've been just focusing on virtue recently, and in the whole crazy times that we're in. And virtue is often defined as the mean between the two extremes. Mm-hmm. So, courage is not being reckless, but it's also not being cowardly either. It's kind of the middle road. And so as you're talking about technology, it's like you don't want either extreme, because either extreme
right,
is bad and not beneficial and fruitful in anybody's life, or in your iMac's life, I guess. But yeah, we want somewhere in the middle where we have the freedom to play around, but also we want some safeguards to not, careen over the edge and fall down the cliff.
Right.
So
moderation in all things, including being moderate.
Right.
We want to drive on the curvy mountain roads, but we want those curvy mountain roads to have guardrails.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a little bit of fun, but also a little safety. And again, with the automobile, I think, the analogy, I think there's an analogy there with the repairability. It's not just computers and phones that have this issue of we can't fix them like we used to. We can't get our hands dirty in the innards. I mean, cars are the same way.
Yeah.
It used to be you had the shade tree mechanic who could take his car apart and put it back together again on the weekend. But now cars are so technology driven that you can't. You have to take it to a mechanic for the smallest thing in many ways. So there's a lot of our tech. We want them to be cooler, sleeker, better, faster, more features, but that comes at a cost in many ways. So I'm reminded of that Google project a few years ago where they were going to have the modular phone where you could snap in a different camera, and it was just like the worst possible of all worlds. It was just this what the designs they were coming up with. There was just no way to do it that wasn't clunky and junky.
Looked like a bunch of Legos.
Right. And we all love our nice, sleek phones that we put in our pocket, the slab of glass, but that comes at the cost of, say, having a replaceable battery, because having a battery compartment adds bulk and and all kinds of other issues that we would have to compromise on. So like you said, Father, it's a compromise. It's a middle road. And hopefully we do, like, Apple stays where it is. I think it's they seem to be veering a little more toward locking things down with their latest computers, like the MacBooks. But also it's bringing some features I like, which is the Touch ID with the T2 security chip. Because of that security chip, it's much closer to being locked down like an iPhone is. But yet, man, not having to. My wife has that on her newer MacBook, and she just touches that thing and she doesn't remember her password to unlock it. And it's all just, I'm like, I want a Touch ID on my iMac, or can we do Face ID? I'd like to do that. But yeah. But we all these features come at a cost, and we just have to be willing to pay that cost. All right. So I think it's time to move on to our next segment, and we get some headlines we wanted to talk about. And the first one that comes up is this interesting story that was in the Washington Post, which says that a bunch of these wearable tech companies, Fitbit, Apple, Aura rings, which I've heard about through Leo Laporte in the Twit network, that a lot of scientists are looking to see if we can use these wearable devices that are collecting all kinds of data about our health to predict if we're going to get sick with the coronavirus before we even know it. And this is an interesting article. The tech columnist Jeffrey Fowler in the Washington Post writes about how he's been wearing an Aura ring, and some of these early results. These aren't peer-reviewed studies yet. There's nothing published, but some of the early stuff suggests that, like, for example, the Aura data can predict up to 3 days in advance when you will start to have fever, coughing, or shortness of breath. What do you think about this? Is this exciting, or is it worrisome that they hadn't get so much information about you from such a thing? What do you think of this? Does it make you want to wear a device that can help predict whether you're going to get sick soon? What do you think?
I think it's worrisome and it's awesome all at the same time.
Right.
You know, I think like most of us out there, there is just a hesitancy to have all of my vitals and all of my, you know, medical information being kind of put out there somewhere and analyzed. You know, so that's sort of kind of worrisome. And one of the things that the article points out too is that take it with a grain of salt at this point. You know, it's some of the things that they were analyzing was like it could notice an increase in your heart rate or temperature, you know, or those sorts of things from what would be considered normal. But it also pointed out there are tons of different reasons why you might have an increase in heart rate. You could be stressed. You could be anxious for some upcoming meeting or whatever it is. And I would be worried too there that someone who is a hypochondriac might take this kind of off the edge and just worry. Yeah. So I really appreciate things like, you know, the Apple Watch has like fall detection, and I've heard stories of it, you know, dialing 911 and saving someone because they fell and couldn't get access to their phone and get help.
An AFib, you know, type of detection.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would be afraid of it kind of, causing more worry than it's worth.
I'd also worry a little bit if we got to a point where health insurers or whatnot could get access to and use this data, or employers too, and use this data against us. You know, you've been gaining some weight lately. We're going to have to raise your premiums, or we're going to cut down on things, or your heart rate is up. You need to start walking more. And start getting nannies overseeing us, or like I said, health insurer or employer or other people. I'd be a little worried if that sort of thing started happening.
I'm more okay with it if the information that it collects is sort of like contained within my phone only,
right? And
it's not shared out.
Yes, that would be the way it should be done. Is that it's my data and it's exposing it to me and keeping it secure.
Right. And if my phone were to ever get destroyed, then like that data is lost. It's
right, or it's locked up in my iCloud account, that sort of thing. Yep. And then another headline we have is from Walmart employees are kind of revolting, maybe a strong term, but they're unhappy, and they've been unhappy with some software that their employer is using, Walmart. It's an AI called Everseen that is supposed to be watching people behavior for shoplifting and other bad behavior in the store, from whether it's customers or employees. And the employees have been saying for years that this stuff is flagging people inappropriately, that people who are engaged in perfectly innocuous behaviors are being flagged by this AI software, which it's not really AI if it's not really working well, and it's causing uncomfortable encounters with customers. They have to confront these customers with this, and they said, and now in this social distancing time we are in, it makes employees less safe because they have to engage in these close encounters with customers. What do you guys think of this? Is it wrong for companies like Walmart to be using AI to be watching people when this stuff is really still in its infancy? What do you think? That's sort of a leading question, I think.
I guess my thought is that it's probably too new to be very accurate. In fact, the article mentioned that people knew how to game it to get multiple things through the checkouts because it only detected it by the presence of something it did wasn't checking weight and things like that.
Right.
So it's not very accurate on either direction. And so I think that might be something to be a clue for them to say, well, there's some problem over here, but I don't think that they should be depending on it like that.
Yeah, I don't think this can replace just the human eye on the situation.
One of the anti-theft features, I think, in like self-checkout is, if you've done the self-checkout where you scan the item and then you have to put it in the bag on the scale. And
Yep.
I'm at Home Depot or Lowe's and I've got this giant thing. I'm like, how exactly would you like me to place this on your scale? Because it doesn't fit.
And then
like
it'll reprimand you when you don't.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
right. It's not
or it's
smart.
a handheld item that I don't really need to put in a bag. It's a waste of a bag.
Right. I mean, sometimes I'll put it down on the scale. Are you happy now? And then pick it up. And but I bought a weed whacker not too long ago. It's this huge box, and I'm like, I'll put it on the scale for you just so you know it's there. You happy? Or I'll lean on the scale. That's the other thing. Like it's not even all that effective. All I need to do is lean on the scale, and I've told it.
Oh, thanks, Dom. Now I know.
I mean, I don't know if it's measuring how much it weighs or not, but it's just silly. I agree. I think putting these things in place when it's clear that they're not effective yet. I mean, this sort of thing has to be nearly perfect, or you're going to alienate customers by confronting them with, is it worth it? I mean, a company like Walmart is so huge that alienating even a few thousand people is not a big deal to them. So I think it betrays a little bit of how you view your customers as potential shoplifters and not as valuable people to you.
Well, and the fact that they've ignored the employees' complaints for so long, from what I understand. It's not just like, oh, this has been going on for a month and people are now complaining. This has been going on a while.
Yes.
And so that's poor policy not to get feedback and act upon it more quickly.
Right. Big bureaucracy, big company. Let's see. Then our next one is so none of the three of us work in an office. So to speak, or we don't have regular office jobs, but there might be some of our listeners who do or did until recent things, and you might be missing the office. Well, you could be like these folks who the Wall Street Journal talks about, whose companies are creating virtual offices in software, SimCity-like simulations, where you could be in the virtual office and you have virtual conference rooms and it looks like, you're looking at your screen and you are sitting in a conference room. I can't think of I'll just be honest. I can't think of anything I less want to do than to sit in a virtual conference room. That's the only thing worse than being in an actual conference room for a meeting. What do you think?
The only thing that I thought about was as they mentioned that there were also break areas where people could congregate and kind of move around like as if they were in a Second Life type situation.
Yeah.
And that might be nice for those non-meeting times when you said, you wanted to go to the water cooler and say hi to Joe because you haven't seen them for a while. And that might be easier to have in a virtual environment than just seeing 5 faces on a screen and saying, hi, how are you doing? It might be a little bit more relaxing for non-meeting time, but I don't really like the idea of recreating my office somewhere else. Right. But I understand that schools have done the same thing, that students have made recreations of their university. I don't remember which university it was.
Yeah.
But that they've done that because they miss that environment.
Yes, it was MIT, I think, was one of them, which makes sense.
Right.
A lot of people have used Slack for that. It's a bulletin board system. I'm not sure about, maybe it's just I'm older, but the idea of having an avatar, like walking around in an environment in an avatar and like trying to get it, doing that to interact with people.
If it could be like Ready Player One,
Yes.
Sure, I'm
kind of
all
like
in.
a hologram. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but
VR
otherwise,
headsets, yeah.
but like legit, like,
Yes.
not just I can see everything, but immersive, like, yeah, like a holodeck or Ready Player One. Otherwise, all I can think of is, like it mentioned, kind of like the Sims games. Like, and if I'm going to do a virtual game, I want escapism. I want to go to, the Star Wars galaxy and or if I'm going to recreate my virtual office, I'm going to put it on the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, or, like,
Right.
I don't want to, it just, and maybe for kids, it might be really helpful
For school, yeah.
But because I do remember, even in high school, you put pictures in your locker, and there's a sense of home there. Most people, the office is not where they go to want to relax or to get away from it all. For those who are on the university, that sort of is home in a sense. And then I can totally be on board with why they feel they want to recreate it.
I'm thinking that if we could recreate like an office conference room where we have our meetings, like the Death Star conference room, I'd be trying to force choke my coworkers like Darth Vader did. So
those would be so unproductive meetings.
Yes. This is now the ultimate power. I think this my new report that my TP reports. Now, to something a little more serious is this article from New York Magazine, which it relates the story of this guy who just recently was misidentified as a ne'er-do-well. So what happened was was it the Bethesda, Maryland is what it was, right outside of Washington, D.C. There was this incident last week as we record this where some guy on a bike confronted some kids hanging up signs advertising a rally, and he got in their face, and he was really aggressive toward them and threatening. And they took, of course, as we do these days, we take video. The kids took video of him, and they went to the police. And the police put out a notice and said, hey, if anybody can help us find this guy, because who this guy is, because there was this incident on this date at this place. And so that unleashed the crowd, the Twitter crowd. And the first problem is that the police gave the wrong day. So they accidentally said one day instead of the next day. And so somebody went on to Strava, which is a device that tracks your location for fitness tracking. So you put it on your bike and it tracks your location, and it will post it on a map online. Most people don't realize that, but I think it defaults to public, which got Strava in trouble with the CIA and the Pentagon a little while ago when it revealed their secret bases in the Middle East that no one else knew were there. Suddenly, all of these Strava tracks in the middle of a desert, that sort of thing. So somebody found this at this time in this place, and they said, who's this guy? And they found him on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and this poor guy, Peter Weinberg, started getting this hate mail saying you're this, that, and he got death threats. The police had to stay outside his house, and it was the wrong guy because it was the wrong day. And even then, who knows if like how do you connect this particular guy riding by at this point is that guy? And so he got doxxed for no good reason. And this is not the only time it's happened. It happens a lot, too much, where the mob, the internet mob, starts putting on their private eye hat. It tracks people down and starts accusing and attacking before there's any evidence. It's guilty until proven innocent. This happened and I was going to mention, this happened in 2013 after the Boston Marathon bombing, where the FBI put out these blurry pictures of guys that were persons of interest, turned out to be the Tsarnaev brothers, but people were using this to track down these other innocent people in the crowd and, accusing them. And these people were like, I didn't do anything. And they're worried about their jobs and worried about getting attacked in public and stuff. So what do you think about this? Have you seen anything like this before? What do you think what's the answer to this, do you think, to this question? this
I
problem.
saw something like this on our neighborhood listserv, or well, I guess next door it is. About 3 weeks ago, there was something that was some type of an incident between a car and a walker, that there was a heated conversation, and people were all over it on the next door thing, talking about, well, I think this person lives there. I can post his address and all this type of stuff. And it's like, wait a minute, this is mob lynch mentality.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Yes.
And as I say, I knew the person involved, and it was like, no, wait a minute, this is not right. This is totally out of control. And luckily it passed within a day or two and nobody remembered it. But, it could have been really nasty, because they were threatening to go to the person's house and confront them, or they'd already called the police and all this type of stuff. And it was like scary.
And with the cancel culture we have now, people could lose their jobs, or
Exactly.
at the
Or
knee-jerk
be
reaction,
maimed,
or be attacked,
or you just you lose your reputation, even if you're the innocent party and you're being accused. Like this poor guy. I mean, it's
sad.
Yeah, I read the article, and my initial reaction was just, this is absolute crazy and scary. And I pulled up the final paragraph, because I think it kind of captures the essence of what happened. Is the woman who shared the home address, of all things to share about this guy who's innocent. She shared the home address on Twitter, which got retweeted and everything, and people got up into a fury over. She deleted it, and the article says, quote, she posted an apology, writing that in all of her eagerness to see justice served, which, okay, that's a fine motive, but executed incredibly poorly. She was swept up in the mob that so gleefully shared misinformation, depriving someone of their own right to justice.
Yes.
And it's that just, the mob mentality, it's a force that you can't hardly stop once it gets going. And especially with Twitter, it makes the point here that her correction was shared by fewer than a dozen people, whereas, the mob stuff is just retweeted, hundreds,
500,000 times.
Just crazy. And it was funny because, it was, again, kind of scary when I read this. I'm on Strava. So like and I'm not worried per se, but I pulled up I'm not logged into Strava on my computer, but I pulled up my profile, and it shows a map of where I walked today, and which I know that it does, and I've given it permission to, but there's something.
You made sure it wasn't public, right?
It for this one, it shows like the top 3, and that's all that you can see unless you're a member. It's slightly scary. But one of the solutions would be is don't share your information this way. Don't either set it to private or don't use Strava at all.
We need to be more careful with where our data leaks. We all have data leaks, even the best of us at this sort of thing. And we've got to be really careful about where is your information leaking to prevent yourself from being caught up in stuff like this. It's not going to guarantee you won't get caught up in it, but it will help.
It's just so difficult, because I mean, if you're on Facebook, you can have your post be location tagged. Or if you upload a picture, it's got, in the data of the picture, it's got the GPS location. And there's so many things that we just don't think about when we share, but there are ways that they can tie that to a particular place and a particular time. And it's scary. Just how much someone can find out about you personally, even if you don't think that you're sharing it.
Right. The one thing I want to say about is there's a reason why we as a society developed the rule of law, the concept of innocent until proven guilty, because there was mobs meting out justice 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, until we had laws that protect people, that protected the innocent from false accusation and false conviction. And we need to remember that it protects all of us.
But that also, I mean, that brings up a whole question of who's policing Twitter.
It's a private thing, so
Right.
there is no police.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the amount of false information that gets spread, I know Twitter tries to do their best to try to, clamp down on some of that, but the
Well,
false
then they get accused of censorship if
Yeah.
they do too much,
Yeah.
And the classic case of, the lie gets halfway around the world before truth gets its pants on in the morning. It's just like,
Yeah.
the police department is the one who put out the bad information to begin with, and that got retweeted 50,000 times. And the correction got retweeted a couple hundred times. It's not as interesting. I mean, there might be a way for Twitter to institute something where if someone has a correction, it automatically puts it top of feed for everyone who shared it, everyone who retweeted it. That there's an automatic that there's a correction. You need to know this. You are someone who retweeted this. Put it at the top of the feed. There might be something to that idea.
I did see something today that was saying that Twitter is beginning to implement something that if you retweet something that's a link, they make sure that you have read it and clicked in and read it yourself before they will allow it to be tweeted out again, because people will tweet it based upon the headline, not the content.
Right.
And so they don't know whether they're going to be able to be successful with this, but I did see that was something that they are piloting right now.
I want to see Facebook implement something where you have to read the article before you can comment on it.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah. But they said that they required the link to be opened, but they didn't specify how long it had to be open so that somebody could just game it by just click and then back again.
Right.
And but yes, you're right. It would be nice to have that certainty that somebody had actually read it.
So speaking of Facebook, and this will be a last headline, so then we'll go to our picks of the week. But there is a link that you put in the show notes, Pat, about how to quickly delete your old Facebook activities, your old Facebook posts, and it's a really nice step-by-step about how to go through your Facebook profile and look at your old stuff and how to delete an individual post, how to find stuff, how to change who can see stuff, there's even a way to delete anything that's older than a certain date, which seems drastic, but perhaps someone wants to do that. Maybe you've changed your life a lot between one day to another. There are ways to archive or trash everything you short of deleting.
Make it private. Yeah.
And the one I didn't realize is you can download all of your Facebook data with one go from one place in the settings. It's in settings, your Facebook information. Download your information, and that's how you do it on your PC. On mobile, it's slightly different. But the article, we'll put a link to the article in the show notes. But it's useful.
There was the one correction here is that the step by step that will work on mobile devices. Right now, it's not implemented on the desktop. So if I went and looked, and no, there isn't a way to do it there yet, but you could do it on the phone as far as deleting a bulk of things. In other words, if I wanted to delete 10 items in a row, I could still do one at a time on the desktop, but I couldn't do a bulk.
Right, you could click, and delete. Yeah,
right, but that is coming. That is next.
That would be good. I think that's. I could see that would be useful. There are probably certain election years that I would like to delete all my posts.
Delete the whole year. That's the best thing.
Yes, that was a bad year.
2020.
Can we delete 2020? Just delete the whole thing. Let's just skip to 2021. All right. So let's go to our picks of the week. And Father Andrew, why don't you go first?
Sure. So one of the fun things to come out of all the coronavirus stuff in this world is that for those of you who don't know this about me, I like to go to Comic-Cons. And I will dress in my clerics and throw a geeky t-shirt over, so my collar's still visible, and it's really a lot of fun, and I get to meet some really cool people, and I meet tons of Catholics too, which is really fun, and they're very happy to see me. But in this, of course, COVID-19 world, all the Comic-Cons that I had planned to go to this year, which was a few of them, have been, of course, canceled. So many of these places are bringing the celebrities to people virtually. So they're doing kind of virtual panels with various actors and those sorts of people. And so it's a really cool way to connect. What's really cool about some of these, and we'll have the links out, is that many of them are absolutely free to join the live stream and the Q&A. And so they have like a it's kind of like you watch the feed, the live stream, and then there's a chat window, and they'll pull out chat questions to throw at the actors, just like at a normal convention where you'd walk up to the microphone and ask questions. So that's really cool. I've gotten to see a couple of them already. Karen Gillan, who's Doctor Who and Jumanji, Bond. Nebula, and then there's a number of them coming up that I'm interested in. Star Trek actors. Dom, there's one that you might be interested in. There's a Doctor Who one. Colin Baker, cool. Sylvester McCoy, and Paul McGann.
Nice.
So
6, 7, and 8.
Yeah. So GalaxyCon Live is actually the main one that I see that's doing a lot of these, and so that's you go to their website and see kind of their list of upcoming virtual experiences. And so, like I said, the live stream and the Q&A is completely free, but what's also cool is you can purchase personalized autographs from them. You can buy like a 2-minute one-on-one video chat with the celebrity.
Wow.
Or you can buy a personalized video shout out that they will record and send to you. So
nice.
Really a kind of a fun way to bring the convention experience virtually to your home until we can go back to actual convention centers and do this. So that's my pick of the week.
Saves a little travel expense too.
It's also really fun because I was out at the park the other day and I had one of them come up. It was a panel with some of the actors from The Flash, and I was out at the park, and so I just pulled it up on my phone and was just out walking around listening to this panel. And you could be in your pajamas on the couch. You could avoid the crowds of the convention center, even though that
I'm cosplaying as me in my jammies.
right. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It looks like Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, the big daddy of them all, is also announced today something they're calling Comic-Con at Home. So
okay,
so they've got something in the works. I don't know what it is, but
I'm wondering if usually they have one in July. I think they're big.
It's usually July.
But I don't know if that's been postponed or canceled or if it's still a go.
The 2020 in-person event is canceled. So that's and this would replace it. So it's there's on their page they have something on their site. I didn't get a chance to watch it before
I'm
recorded.
Still not sure about Star Wars Celebration. It's still technically going in August.
Yeah.
I have tickets, but
I'm surprised they haven't canceled that yet.
But I'm also going to be a new pastor, and so it's imprudent for me to go, so I'm not going.
You put a link in our Slack that Monday there's going to be Ewan McGregor on Ace Universe Comic-Con. So that's
yep.
That should be good. Upcoming Obi-Wan series. So nice.
Yeah,
that's a great.
And
that's
again,
a great
these are free.
Yeah.
Just to join the Q&A or the panel is free. And of course, to go to a convention, it's not free. So
no, yeah.
This is cool.
Cool.
Well, I hope they have merchandise you can buy so that'll help, encourage them to keep doing these.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, the autographs and the video shout outs and stuff. I don't know if they have
T-shirts.
I bet they do, but that I'm more interested.
I was virtually there.
Right.
So thanks. That's a great pick. Pat, what's your pick this week?
Well, one of my sons mentioned that the people who put out Assassin's, now I can't remember the whole name of it.
Assassin's Creed.
That's right.
Yep.
That they, for a few days or about a week, they had the ability to let you download ancient Egypt and Greece. The portions of the game, they let you download that as a virtual experience, so that I have spent several hours wandering around Egypt, going to the various tombs, and they give you a tour, and you can either jump right directly to something, or you can get on a horse and ride to it, or you can walk to it, or you can climb aboard an eagle and fly to it. and I'm only partially through it, and I've got Greece yet to do. And so those were free for that week. But I went and looked, and they're on special right now for $9.99 each to download these virtual tours. Now, each of the downloads is about 50 gig. Right. So that's a lot of data, and you do have to have a machine that can run the graphics and have enough memory to do it. And I have a PC that's okay. It's not a gamer machine.
Right.
So, but at any rate, I just have been really enjoying this, and I have to admit, it did cause me to go buy another piece of tech. I got a controller because I was really bad at trying to walk using my mouse and keyboard controls. Actually, it would have worked with a mouse, but it was only keyboard controls. So now I have an Xbox controller that I can ride my horse a lot better now. But it's a great educational experience. It really is.
Assassin's Creed is a first-person fighting game, but they're known for making their worlds so detailed, so accurate.
They are.
That they've come up with these side games. They're not really part of the game itself. They're just a way to walk through the world, and they call it an educational mode of Assassin's Creed Origins, and so discovery tours they call them, and you can, like you said, go to these places.
And if I'd had the games, they would have been included free. But I have never done any of these. And so I've been just blown away by the graphics on them and just the fluidity of them. And it's just really been neat.
There are times I wish I had a Windows machine, but it would be fun to do this. If we will, ancient Greece and ancient Egypt are the two that they have.
Rome I would like to see at some point too, but that's not released. So,
and apparently there was one of the Assassin's Creed games was set in Paris, and it was extremely detailed as well. And in fact, I think I remember something about the model of the Notre Dame was so detailed that they were using it to help them in the restoration.
Yep.
I mean, pretty amazing. Awesome. That's a good pick. So my pick is a bit of it's not new technology at all, but it's new to me. I just recently purchased a new Kindle. I got the Kindle Paperwhite 10th generation. I have a Kindle. I had a Kindle. Which I've had since 2013. I think it's 6th generation. I'm not exactly sure. And that wasn't even my first Kindle. Yes, it's obsolete. I mean, I've had it for 7 years. The battery was dying. It's at the point where the battery would last like 2 days, and I have to recharge it again. It was really a pain in the neck. And the newer Kindles are water resistant. They're more waterproof than they were before. Let's put it that way. So I traded mine in. I got $25, and they had a deal for if I bought one. I got a brand new Kindle Paperwhite for like $80 or something, which was pretty darn good, I think. And it's really nice. I like the screen. It's sharper than my old one, and the backlight is bright because it's brand new. And frankly, it's a little too bright. I have to turn down the brightness because when I read in bed at night, it's a little bright. But really happy with it. And so my pick is the Kindle Paperwhite 10th generation.
Yeah, I got one of those about 4 months ago because my old Kindle I had given away, and I thought I didn't need it. But the more I thought about it, the more I really wanted that Paperwhite experience. And so I had not had a Paperwhite before. So yes, mine, I agree. It's a good reading vehicle.
And I read almost exclusively ebook now. I like having that experience.
Do you prefer that to a physical book?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so. If I have to read a physical book, I am much slower at reading it because a physical book has to sit somewhere. You know what I mean? It's like it's on my bedside table, and so I only read it like in the 20 minutes before I fall asleep at night. Whereas if I've got the Kindle, it's with me a lot during the day. It's here, there, and everywhere. It's got every book on it that I want. If I finish a book, I can start a new one right away, and I can. If I don't have my Kindle with me and I'm out, I can open it up on my phone. I prefer not to read on my phone, honestly, because I find the notifications are distracting, and I find the e-ink of the Paperwhite to be a little easier on the eyes than the active screen of the phone. for some reason. But I'll read on the phone. If that's what I got. But because everything syncs, it keeps my place. Mm-hmm. I think the syncing could be a little better. Sometimes it gets a little out of sync, and it's a pain in the neck. I have to find where I was, but I prefer it.
Yeah, on the phone or the iPad, I do use the sepia setting, which is a little closer to being
like the
more
ink.
like
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It's a little less drastic on the eyes, and I'll do that if I'm out somewhere. I can pick up and read a chapter.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was at home, I wouldn't be able to. So
yeah, that's a good point. I should try the sepia. That's all. I'm going to do that on my phone. Awesome. And it's the middle range Kindle, by the way. They have the Oasis, which I don't know why anyone would spend $230 on an ebook reader. That I don't know what it provides so much greater.
I think it's more waterproof than any of the others, is what I had heard. Is that it was pretty resistant.
If I were a fisherman or a scuba diver, that might be a thing that I do. All right. So those are our picks. I think that's where we should wrap things up. So I'd love to hear from the listeners. We'd love to get listener feedback like we did today from listener Alan. We love to get your feedback. We love to discuss it. So let us know what you think of the topics we discussed. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology. Or on the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or you can send an email to technology@sqpn.com. And you can find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. We do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Alex G., Michael D., Angie T., John H., and Mark M. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology in all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Finally, if you could, we really do appreciate it if you could go to Apple Podcasts or one of the podcast directories and write a review of the show. You don't know how important it is for podcasts that you write reviews of them in those directories. It's almost the only way we get new listeners is by when people write a review, that gooses the algorithm and gets the podcast into the listings. And so we really do appreciate that. That, and when you share the show with your friends, you let your friends know, hey, this is a great podcast you should be listening to. If you could do either of those two things, we'd really appreciate it. So until next time, Father Andrew Kinstetter, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Pat Scott, thank you as well.
Adios, hasta la vista. Till another time.
And once again, I'm Don Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.